बहुत साल पहले एक जंगल में एक बहुत सुंदर सा आश्रम था और उस आश्रम में एक महात्मा रहते थे और उस आश्रम में बहुत सुंदर सुंदर से पेड़ पौधे थे और उसमें बहुत सुंदर सुंदर से पक्षी रहते थे। एक दिन एक कौवा एक पेड़ पर बैठा था। Now what has this done? This has created a context, this has created a picture where we all are on the same page. When, how, where, from, everything has been answered in these 3 lines. Friends, this is what is called the context. Picturizing the scene in front of you so that we are all on the same page, and then we begin with the story. How this context could have been different is, we could have said, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. Another context could be, बहुत साल पहले अगस्त्य मुनि के आश्रम में, or for that matter, any sage you can take. The moment we say Agastya Muni ke ashram mein, we suddenly go back to that age and we can picturize how Agastya Muni ashram would have been. So that is what was meant by how we can use this context in different ways. Devani mentioned one of the ways when this, how this context can be, changed. She proposed that why not make it, contemporary by saying, there was a metro man, a person who's living in a metro, and changing the whole story, the same story, with context to a metro person. Well, that's a great idea, but then you are changing the story. My question was how to, have different ways of changing the context, but not the story. So I hope you all might have understood what is meant by context. Because many a times we start a story and the audience is puzzled, where does this all come from? Are you getting my point? So I think so we were able to explain to you what is meant by context and how we can improve. Any type of, whenever you are describing a context, you should be very precise. For example, these 3 lines, that's the max. One of the biggest mistakes we do is, in our speech, many a times I have found speakers, almost half of their speech is all about the context, trying to explain the situation, trying to explain the settings. We lose the point there. Remember, the first 30 seconds is very essential, and the first 30 seconds, if you can set the context right, you have won your first battle. Thank you. Coming to the second C is character. What do we mean by character? Obviously, if there is a story, there will be a character. There will be characters. When we talk about character, it means explaining the character in precise words so that we can imagine them the way you would want us to do. For example, if I say there was a cat, or if I say there was a black cat, or there was a ferocious black cat. Now, if you see in all the 3 statements, your imagination has changed. Now, depending upon what type of a cat I want to, want you to imagine, I will use those words. For example, I can always say that Ramu is one of our old servant who has been with us since ages, and he's the one who actually looked after me during my childhood days. Or I can simply say, Ramu Kaka took care of me in my childhood days. Now, as Indians, The moment we say Ramu Kaka, which you've seen in a lot of movies, we can picturize that he's an old servant who is a loyal servant and has been with us since ages. So instead of using these long lines, if I have used Ramu Kaka, the meaning and the imagination is the same, and I get the same results. So if we see in this story, एक मोटा चूहा, एक छोटी चुईया, बड़ा शेर. So if you see, it adds to the story. So what does characterization actually do is, it helps, number one, to be in sync. The audience and the speaker, they are both in sync, and they can imagine what the speaker wants to say. That's one. Second thing is, it gives opportunity to use your voice modulation and your body language. For example, when I said a cat, I was normal. But when I said a black cat, you see my emotions and my body language changed. And when I said a ferocious black cat, now you see my body language and my voice modulations all changed to suit that character. And immediately you could all picturize a black ferocious cat with, dangerous. So that's what is called character building. And that is one of the essential parts of storytelling. Many a times the mistake we do is, either we don't build the character, so the essence, we don't feel the essence, or we spend so much time building the character that the interest is lost. So why are we talking about all those 4 C's? Because so that you can use these 4 C's in a precise manner. See, you've got only 4 minutes or 6 minutes to tell the story, and only 30 seconds to make an impression. The better we get in this, the better vocabulary we choose, the better we'll be able to connect with the audience and become awesome speakers. What difference we could have done? We could have given names. For example, Sher Khan. Now, the moment we say Sher Khan, obviously in this story we couldn't have used the Sher Khan thing, because this was something which we're talking about very ancient time. But I'm just giving you an example. The moment we say Sher Khan, or the moment we say Mittu Tota, the moment we say Mittu or Kallu Kawa, immediately we picturize Mittu Tota is a very cute Tota, Kallu Tota is a very black, ugly crow, and Sher Khan is a ferocious tiger or lion. So giving popular names is one of the ways to put your point across and ignite the imagination of the audience. That is something which we can do different. And now we come to our third C, and that is conflict. This is where many of us are actually confused. Conflict, as in, it's not a literal meaning of conflict, thinking that, okay, where do we have a fight or where there is difference of opinion. No. Conflict is actually setting up, or it's a series of events which actually sets up to the final conclusion or message which the speaker wants to deliver. For example, in this story, what was the conflict? The conflict starts from the small chuha, the chota chuha, who's wanting to become a thora mota chuha, and the mota chuha is actually now wanting to become the cat, and the cat wanting to become the dog, and the dog wanting to become the tiger. And now, see, every time what we are thinking, okay, what next? What next? What next? So there is a conflict which is building up. There's a sequence of events which is building up, culminating into something where you come to a dead end. And suddenly you say, okay, now what? Now you become a tiger. Ab tum sher ban gaye ho. Now what? That's the point where the groundwork is created. The ground is created for the climax or the final message to be delivered. This is an art which actually binds the audience to you. the the better you are in building up the conflict, the more the audience is glued to say, okay, what next? Okay, what next? What next? So you have laid the context well, then you have described the characters well, so the ground is laid, the background is laid, and then you start the conflict slowly and slowly and slowly, and you've almost got your audience hooked up to you. The audience is hooked up. So what next? What next? What next? And suddenly you come to a dead end, and now you say, what next? Is the tiger going to eat the Sadhu Maharaj? Or the Sadhu Maharaj is going to protect himself? There's a cow mooing. So that's called a good conflict. What is a good conflict? See, many a times the biggest mistakes, again, what we do in conflict is either we actually fail to build up a good conflict, or we take the conflict so long that the interest is lost. So it's generally said that a conflict should not be more than 3. 1, 2, 3, and then go to the climax or go to the conclusion or the message which you want to deliver. The crisper, the better. Thank you. And now that you have actually built up, laid down the context, described the characters well, built up the anticipation, in conflict, you actually build up the anticipation. You've built up that anticipation. Now is the time for the climax or the conclusion. The climax or the conclusion is actually the message or the experience which you want the audience to be delivered. Your climax should be crisp, as short as possible, and as impactful as you can. A climax can be on a very high note or can be on a very low note. Now, for example, in this story, the conflict was built up, from the small mouse. He became a fatter mouse, and then he became a cat and a dog and a tiger, and now the tiger wants to eat the Sadhu Maharaj. And now we are anticipating what the end could be. The end was like in this story, that the moment the tiger actually wants to kill the Sadhu Maharaj, the Sadhu turns the tiger into the small mouse again. So the message which the speaker wanted to deliver here was कि अपनी औकात कभी नहीं भूलनी चाहिए. You should never forget your roots. So maybe that was the message which the speaker wanted to deliver. The same story could have been reversed. How? Could have said, and then the tiger eats the Sadhu Maharaj. And say कि ओके, और वो शेर फिर साधु महाराज को खाने गया, और जैसे उसने साधु महाराज को देखा, और इससे पहले कि साधु महाराज अपना कमंडल उठा के उसके ऊपर पानी फेंक के उसको बदलते, शेर उस पर झपटा और शेर साधु महाराज को खा गया. तो दोस्तों, इस स्टोरी से हमें ये मिलता है कि कभी भी किसी को उसकी औकात से ज़्यादा नहीं देना चाहिए. ये समझदारी की बात नहीं है. See, I've just reversed the climax, reversed the conclusion. So it all depends upon the same story, what the speaker wants to deliver. It's his ground, it's his rules. He can change the climax, he can change the conclusion. The main important point is the story was used to deliver a message, the story was used to deliver something or an experience. And that is what all good climax or conclusion is all about. The big mistakes which we do is, and that many of the speakers we've seen, that the moment you've delivered the climax, the conclusion, we start explaining the conclusion. It is said that conclusions are better left to the imagination of the audience. You don't need to. If you see many of the movies, they have a very abrupt ending. They give you the conclusion and leave the audience to decide what they want to decipher from the conclusion. If, on the other hand, if you actually want the audience to listen to your point of view of the conclusion, then you use this as a opening in a speech and explain the meaning and explain everything in the speech. But if you're telling a story, if you're just telling a story, if you're not actually delivering a speech, it is always better left to the audience to imagine the conclusion or imagine the climax. Thank you so much. You are all a very good audience, and I think so. I could do my best to make you understand what the 4 C's are. And if we master those 4 C's, then we will actually become awesome speakers, because awesome speakers are not good speakers. Awesome speakers are speakers who can deliver the same message within 6 minutes without losing the essence. Thank you so much.